Washington County Solid Waste Planning Committee is called to order at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 10th. Welcome to everyone. We do have quorum present. Extra copies of the agenda are available where?
I placed them at the front of the table.
Oh, did you get one? There are extras. So anyone who does not have an agenda?
Can you get one from me?
And minutes?
One here.
There's one.
There's more on the clipboard here.
Okay.
I think they were.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Do you have?
No, I would like one, please.
Couple copies here. There you go. Everyone else good? Folks can review the agenda as presented. I think Jeff did want to add a, under new business, if maybe we could just do this first, planning committee membership update. So if we can add that under new business as the new letter A, and then we'll just go from there. Is there anything else? Any other changes to the agenda as presented? If not, seeing no other comments, we'll approve the agenda as amended. At this point, we'd like to open up for public comment. We have up to 3 minutes for each speaker available. Anyone from the public that would like to address the planning committee? Is he at this time? Okay. Anyone else for public comment?
And they get another chance.
And they will get another chance. All right, on to the minutes of January 13th. Any additions, deletions, substitutions for what has been presented? If not, we will presume by lack of notice that the minutes are accepted as written. On to old business, data request follow-up. Anna, this goes to you.
Sure. So we reported last time that we were sending out profiling information about to all the different the local units of government here in the county, and then also started doing research on commercial sector stuff, which we'll touch on later. But we've only gotten about 3 or 4 responses to the data request. And so we want to encourage folks who are municipal representatives, please send us your information. You can email it to us, you can call us, or we can come to you, we can set a meeting. And so you'll probably hear from Kelly Domino from our office if you haven't already. And over the next couple of weeks, this is gonna be top priority. So we're gonna be, for lack of a better way to say it, chasing you down to get this data. Yes?
Since you said you got 3 or 4 back, do you by chance happen to know which?
Yeah, it's later.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me, since we are not actually gonna see the slides.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now. So we received actual data from Ypsi Township, Lodi Township, Milan, and the city of Dexter.
And the University of Michigan. I know you
Yes.
did it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we also received large generator data from the University of Michigan and Trinity Health. So, cheers to you all. And we received community profile forms without data from a number of other communities as well, but the complete data, actual sort of tonnage information only from the ones I mentioned.
With an indication that they don't have it available to them,
Yeah.
essentially?
What were the other communities?
We have profiles received in addition to the ones I mentioned with the data from Sylvan Township, Bridgewater Township, Scioto Township, Superior Township, and Webster Township.
Christina?
I can say, I got mine, but I didn't fill out after the due date. So an issue getting stuff back, so, I mean, so I can still submit the data, that's my question. I can
Yes,
do that,
absolutely,
but,
please submit the data.
I work for a city, so this mail is slow, so I didn't get it till after any
Okay,
of the due dates or anything.
okay, that's great
So
feedback.
that might be a problem with some of the other townships or cities, is that there was only a week given to return the data. If I remember from the letter. It was a very short period.
I can't facilitate the meeting and then also hook this up, so let's just pause on this. I would love to set a time for you, and we can come pick stuff up at the office or at your offices, and, or if there's a way to electronically share information, we'd be happy to get that. But we'll note that as we're calling folks to say, did you get it after the due date, sorry about that, and let them know.
Gotcha.
I'm only relative to WWRA. We represent the city of Chelsea, Linden Township, Lima Township, Dexter Township, and Manchester Township. And we handle all the recycling, so the data would probably be from us. If
Okay.
we send them letters, they're not gonna know how to respond.
I'm pretty sure we sent one to WWRA too, but,
I didn't see it.
okay.
Not yet.
That's why we're talking about it now, so, be happy to connect with you and, ask you for the information that we can get to upload, into the system.
Okay.
Anything else under data request?
Yep, not for me.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, let's move on to new business. Jeff, you want to start out talking about the planning committee membership?
Right, so, last fall, J.D. Lindbergh had resigned his post. And we had made a switch to put Frank Hammer as a representative from the solid waste industry and moved John to, the citizen, from an alternate. So that left the alternate position vacant. So we're still taking self-nominations for the alternate, position. And we may have a position open, up with, John has accepted a position with Washtenaw County. So John, I think, has said that he would submit his resignation from this committee. Do you want to add anything, John, or? No. Okay.
This would be my last time sitting here in this capacity.
Are you sure you want to do that?
So we would have.
You can beg, Brian, you can beg.
Upon his resignation, we will post the citizens vacancy for the solid waste planning committee through the county clerk's office. And so that'll give an opportunity for folks to apply to become members of the solid waste planning committee.
Say, Jeff, is there any update on a replacement from the Board of Commissioners for Yusef Rabi?
No, and we have not heard anything regarding the Board of Commissioners representation. Dan Smith is the representative, the commissioner from that little area of the county, and he is the liaison to the Board of Public Works, which is the designated planning agency for solid waste. However, he could not do that and be a part of this, and I have asked Edwin or Yusef to help clear up that spot so we could have representation from the Board of Commissioners here at our meeting. So hopefully we'll have some activity on that in the near future, but not right now.
He cannot serve in both roles by statute, or?
Well, he can, but he doesn't have the time.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, this is how he's gonna budget his time in both places, so, but he will be participating. We will be giving him updates on the solid waste planning process during Board of Public Works meetings, which are held the third Wednesday of every month at 8:30 in the room above the entrance to our building, room 1020, I believe it's called, or 2010. And so we'll update him what's going on at that time. And mention to him next Wednesday will be his first meeting, and mention that we still have this vacancy for the position as a board liaison.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Jeff?
Let me just lift up the screen.
Yeah, maybe putting the screen up would help. writing on the board.
Football.
Top secret.
It was QB.
All right, so on to Washtenaw County current programs overview. Jeff, you're leading this?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So you want to go ahead and do that first? So this is a big picture of all the things we do in our solid waste program. And these are sort of like initiatives or priorities set forth back in the 1999 solid waste plan update. First one is the home toxics reduction program. Last year we collected over 650,000 pounds of household hazardous waste from residents through our one-day collections and through our permanent facility back here in our parking lot. So we're open every Saturday, or the first 3 Saturdays of the month, April to November, 9 a.m. to noon, and we've averaged around 200 cars per 3 hours. And so it provides a service for those things that shouldn't be thrown away in the landfill to be brought here and properly disposed of. So that's been a real successful program. The latex paint recycling program, as people may know, you can dry out latex paint and dispose of it in your solid waste stream with the lid off so that hauler can see that it's a solid. But we have reached out to a company in Ohio to actually take the good paint that we get during the milder times of year when it doesn't freeze to have it reblended and made into new paint. And we pay a little more for that type of disposal or that reuse, but it meets our goal of reuse instead of disposing. So we send it to a facility in Cincinnati, Ohio that actually recycles the latex paint. Another issue that came up in the last few years was used cooking oil. A lot of people have deep fryers for their turkeys and other uses, and we even accept very large volumes of 20 gallons at a time, but we are getting paid by Thumb Energy to recycle that, and it's made into a biofuel. And we collect that also at our household hazardous waste facility. We run the county cleanup days. We work with local municipalities. We've worked in the past with Chelsea, Saline, Northfield Township, and Superior Township, along with Eastern Michigan University, to do one-day collections where we collect all those materials that are banned from the landfill, like tires, freon-containing appliances, the household hazardous waste, electronics, mattresses, things that are hard to get rid of. And so when folks don't have an easy option to get rid of this stuff, it contributes to roadside dumping. And one of the things we like to do is take away that and give there some amnesty. We do ask for some donations on the day, but mainly that comes out of our solid waste fund to run those cleanup days. So we have about 3,000 folks participate in those collections on an annual basis. The pharmaceutical take-back program was implemented about 7 years ago. Well, actually longer than that. We found that one of the most toxic things inside the home, or the home toxics reduction program, and the most toxic thing that you can find in your house is in the medicine cabinet. And many poisonings are reported to poison control for misuse or overuse of prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs. And so we talked to poison control and we found out we get around 600 calls from Washtenaw County residents on an annual basis, or within 6 months, for issues regarding pharmaceuticals. So we started a take-back program with 13 pharmacies that take back unused pharmaceuticals, over-the-counter, and prescribed medications. We also work with the law enforcement agencies because they have a Red Barrel program in Chelsea's police station, Saline Station, down here at Scioto Township, and a few other locations. The police have Red Barrels in their lobby, and that allows them to throw away the scheduled narcotics because we cannot legally take them back at the pharmacies that we have on board, with the 13 pharmacies that we have on board in our take-back program. So between the 13 pharmacies that we have as a take-back program, the Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement agencies running the Red Barrel programs, our aim is to reduce the toxicity waste stream, one, lower the incidence of poisoning and abuse of these medications. Shrink wrap recycling, we work with local marinas and we have reached out to some nurseries regarding the shrink wrap that they use for boats, RVs, and it's the same type of material that's used in nurseries to make their hoop houses and cover their greenhouses. So we worked with Great Lakes Recycling on an annual basis. They come by in June and they stop at a few marinas in our community where all the shrink wrap is brought together, and then they ship it off for recovery. And it's a very clean stream and it's a desirable stream. We just pay for trucking and that's it. We work with Great Lakes Recycling. Jason Youngman is the contact person out there. So that's a good program. It takes a lot of bulk out of the waste stream. Our Washtenaw County regional drop-off stations. There are stations around Washtenaw County. Western Washtenaw has several in the Chelsea, Lima, Manchester area. Bridgewater has a drop-off station. Barton Hills has a drop-off station. Lodi Township has a drop-off station on a routine basis. There's one in Salem Township. So we try to provide these regional drop-off stations and support them to help provide recycling programs for residents. Zero waste events. We have this year, or last 2 years, we worked with Recycle Ann Arbor, and we're promoting, doing some public outreach at events such as Dexter Days, Celine Fest, to participate and provide recycling and diversion of food waste from these one-day events. So we try to have a point of education in the field with the folks out there, so we can tell them why we're there, what they can do at home, and what kind of opportunities they could follow up. But we try to do an education outreach and also provide some waste reduction at these events, these public events. And Noel's takes the lead on that, and it's been very popular, and we've been requested to do even more than what we can handle. So that's been a very successful program. We work with the Department of Agriculture on the Clean Sweep Pesticide Herbicide Collection Program. We work with the agricultural community and the landscape turf folks and all the residents to collect these pesticides and herbicides, and the Michigan Department of Agriculture will reimburse us for the disposal of these materials. The catch is that we have to take it from anybody within the state. So we get some calls from Oakland County, Lenawee County, Calhoun County, Ingham County, folks that want to drop it off, these materials for safe disposal of these pesticides and herbicides. But that offsets our cost by $27,000 a year. So that's a grant program that we run through the Michigan Department of Agriculture that has saved us money and has taken these pesticides out of these barns, these old barns, or these abandoned landscaping businesses, and found a safe place for them to dispose of it. We have business programs. One of the initiatives of our 1999 Solid Waste Plan Update was the Waste Net program. So we recognize businesses that purchase post-consumer, have a policy that talks about reduction of waste, educates their employees, and actually has a good recycling program, a waste diversion program. We have around 300 partners right now in our Waste Net program, and we provide business assistance, and then we provide them recognition also for what they're doing. We received an application just recently where their application seemed a little marginal, so we are setting up a site visit to do a waste audit and make recommendations, provide policies that they can teach their employees on how and why they should be running a little more sustainably. But we also recognize those that are doing a great job right now and share that information with all the other partners. The Environmental Excellence Awards, the E2 Environmental Excellence, called the E2P2 program, that's will be held, so an event that we hold at Weber's Inn. It'll be at April 14th. And it's the formal ceremony where we recognize these folks, not only from the Waste Not program, but from the Community Partners of Clean Streams. It's a program run by the Water Resources Commissioner's Office that looks at stormwater runoff for businesses and residents to reduce their impact of stormwater runoff, and look at their practices and how they maintain their property to make sure that their runoff from storm events has the least effect on the surface water quality of Washtenaw County. The 3R Business Directory is a directory of all of our businesses within the Waste Net program, and it kind of lists out their practices. So if you have a similar business and you have a similar waste stream, you can look at these profiles of these different businesses and see if there's anything that could transfer to your business or your agency. We go out to the public as much as we can. The Ann Arbor Mayor's Green Fair we're attending, the Heritage Festival in Ypsilanti, U of M Earth Fest, Washtenaw Community College Career Day, here on River Day, and Earth Fest. So we try to get our get out in the community, let people know what we're doing and how they can participate in some of the programs I just mentioned. We also have community outreach programs. We work with Project Row on running a master composter class through the Ann Arbor Rec and Ed, so that people can take composting classes and learn how they can do some more reduction of organics in the waste stream by composting their materials and learn through this class. We have the Issues of the Environment radio show. It's on every Wednesday morning on WEMU 89.1 at 6 o'clock, I believe, or 6:50 and 8:50 in the morning. And we have a guest on to talk about some local environmental issues that affect our community. We've been doing this since 1997. We also have a Green Room Radio show, which is a once-a-month program, where it's a little long, an extended program talking about a local environmental issue. And we also tie it into a television show run through the community television network that's located on South Industrial. So we provide, we have a recording, a digital recording with some of the folks that, regarding the issues that ranges from solid waste management to recycling to diversion to protecting pollinators. We've done a lot of different shows, air quality, energy savings, or energy initiatives and so forth. We also provide a turning trash to treasure guide, which has a list on our website of all the places for those things that are hard to get rid of and what local agency will accept those and reuse them or handle them in a safe fashion to remove them from your house. Presentations, we go out into the community as requested. Sometimes we're a little proactive in getting these information out to residents and other agencies, local units of government, nonprofits, on what we do and how they can be a part of our program if they wish to be. So these are some of the statistics that we have from our one-day collections. This gives you an idea. So in 2015, out these outreach events, Chelsea, Northfield, Saline, and Eastern Michigan University, that's 120,000 pounds of household hazardous waste, 64,000 pounds of e-waste, and 43,000 pounds of metals. Now, we don't get any recoup. We don't sell these materials at a profit or anything like that. These are all handled by contractors, but we do pay for the service, and they can average around $15,000 to $20,000 per event. But we find that's an effective way. We try to institutionalize the date. So for the first Saturday in May, for example, Chelsea folks know that to look out to see if there's a collection. Northfield Township, the second Saturday in May or June, and so on and so forth. So we try to make these routine enough so that the people know in the future that there's an opportunity for them to get rid of these things that they can't put out at the curbside. So, next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, last year through all these programs, we diverted 640,000 pounds of household hazardous waste. Our medicine take-back program last year diverted about 12,600 pounds of waste, unused pharmaceuticals. No, since 2008 we did 3,300 pounds last year. We pay for 11 pharmacies, although we have more pharmacies on that pay for their own disposal. They use our contract through a memorandum of understanding between the pharmacy and our service provider. And then we have 6 red barrel programs that I mentioned for the narcotics and scheduled medicines that we can't accept through our pharmacies. So all of that, all up, comes around to 750,000 pounds, 375 tons we've diverted out of the waste stream in 2015. All those household hazardous waste, the tires, containing appliances. So that's what we put forth in effort to reduce the amount.
Do you have more data about those materials and the scale of what the county is doing right now? I mean, I'm curious. I'm curious what percentage of the materials are getting diverted.
Right.
For instance,
Because we do take couches, carpeting, things that go to the solid waste landfill.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
you
there's
know,
some-
with things like with the toxics, with pharmaceuticals and electronics, other toxics, you know, the poundage number only means so much without knowing how much is out there, how much might get landfilled. I don't know if we have the.
No, that's a hard, we addressed that many years ago, trying to figure out what we have to tackle.
Uh-huh.
And it's pretty much, I don't know how we can get that number. And plus, these are the people with the need to get rid of it. We don't know how much is still sitting, you know, in the house that we haven't reached out, or they don't have a need to get rid of it right now. So, that's the only metric we could use. We can do a diversion metric, things that are not going to landfill, because e-waste gets recycled, tires get recycled, some of our household hazardous waste gets recycled or fuel blended. Excuse me, and so we could break that out of these numbers to find out what actually is not being thrown away that would have been or could have been. So,
I think as we put together the data too, we can start to look at, you know, so here's how much waste we know is disposed of in the county, and then we can use the data that they have to show some of the diversion, once we get all that information in.
Yeah, that would be a start. Yeah, you know, the number by itself doesn't convey a whole lot of how effective the program is being. I'm assuming it's
Right.
effective, but.
well, also you can look at the amount of households that participate in these collection programs. We figured it's over 5%. Now, you'd think that's really small, but compared across the country, the average is 2 to 3% in terms of participation rates by households for these collection programs.
And you know that number based on accounts that you keep of how many people?
It's
bring
through
materials?
networking with the EPA and other agencies around the country.
I mean the county, the Washtenaw numbers.
I'm sorry?
You know the Washtenaw numbers because you track the number?
Oh, yes, yes. Mhm.
Uh-huh. That's useful.
And we report back to those people that are hosting. So we let them know that they can tell their constituents, because they do provide us support, like Superior Township gives us money, Linden Township, Dexter, we work with Western Washtenaw and the city of Chelsea. They use their space, they provide employees. So we like to report back to them and show them what difference it makes.
And I think, you know, there are other entities within the county that are also running kind of concurrent programs that capture regulated waste as well. It's worth, you know, mentioning.
Like your annual.
Yes, right.
computer Collection.
Right, there's the Apple Computer Collection Program at
Right.
Pioneer High School.
Right.
There has been some in Saline also, and something that we have to have our ears out there to find.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, the reason I brought that up is by just looking at your data isn't really going to get to the point of trying to analyze what percentage of Washtenaw County's overall waste this data is diverting, because there are other concurrent programs going on within the county that are also grabbing pieces of that pie.
That's a good point.
We're reaching out and trying to get those folks on board, but, you know, it's through like Calvert's or Razorback or, you know, all these private entities that are around there, and that's what we're looking to do, is try to see if we can dig some numbers out there proprietary, but we'll do the best we can. Could you turn up the sound on that? Megan's having a hard time hearing.
Oh no, I got it figured out. When she said it was fuzzy, but I've relocated and
Oh.
she said it's
No, the sound.
the sound.
She can't hear that well.
Oh.
There's a upper, yeah. Is that better, Megan? No.
I just texted her, she said it was better.
Not a good sign. Other questions or comments for Jeff? Do you prepare an annual report of sorts that does?
Yeah, so we do prepare an annual report. It's an infographic type of dashboard reporting, which we can provide. We put on our website, and so folks can go on there and see these numbers. Basically, the graphics that you saw are what's found in our report, annual report.
So can we get that on the shared file?
That's hot off the presses too, it's not even been published yet, right? The 2015 report.
Okay.
So you got a sneak peek.
Okay, so as that, I guess, is public, maybe if you've got the last couple of years' information as well, that'd be helpful to have for the record. Other questions or comments? Thank you for that overview, Jeff.
Okay.
Much appreciated. So on to the peer county profiles, peer communities.
Yes, so, so that's why we had Jeff, just give an overview of what Washtenaw County does, and then, as we mentioned last time, we wanted to take a look at peer communities across the country to see, you know, what are aspirations for Washtenaw County, what do other counties do, as far as services, so, we've kind of summarized them in a table, and then I'll go through each section, but we looked at the following counties, Lane County, Oregon, Boulder County, Colorado, Dane County, Wisconsin, Ramsey and Dakota in Minnesota, Monroe County, Indiana, and Orange County, North Carolina. Some of these were selected because they're, you know, Big Ten, you know, university towns and counties. Some are, you know, college and university town like a Boulder County. Boulder is also, I would say, very much the Ann Arbor of, you know, the West. It's a similar vibe and feel to that town with a university there. Remind me what's in Lane County, Oregon, Beth?
My hometown.
Your hometown. That's why we chose it. Yeah.
No, it's the home of the University of Oregon, so
Correct.
it's similar in terms of population demographics.
And then Orange County is the Research Triangle area, and again, a progressive area. And so while the population number isn't on, you know, is significantly less than Washtenaw, they have it's a similar kind of vibe there as well. So so you can see how they compare household and population wise. And then here we also summarize waste reduction goals. Some of these counties have waste reduction goals that they're working towards. So you can see Lane's got a 50% diversion rate, Boulder's got a zero waste by 2025, and they're already at 82%, which is, that's great. Orange County's going to exceed their goal from the previous year. That's always a good goal to have. So now the next couple slides will show how we compare programs that they offer. So the first set of programs, so we tried to see who has to do a solid waste plan like Washtenaw County does. So, you know, probably 5 out of 7 there have to do that, so they're required. We tried to say, like, how many have policies and ordinances in place that help support the programs that they operate and to increase diversion. And we'll go through that in more detail, but you can see quite a few of them have that. What you'll see here on this kind of blank area in the middle is that most counties don't offer the actual collection services. It looks like Orange County is the standalone for most of that. But it would seem that most, you know, most counties let the local units of government coordinate that. But on the other hand, some of these counties have policies or ordinances in place that require certain levels of services within the county. So if you are a hauler in a certain county, you have to offer recycling services. So while they don't provide the service, they set a bar to ensure services are being provided that will help increase diversion. And then you'll see on the bottom, organics. Quite a few counties offer some sort of organics program, and we'll get into detail there. The second grouping here is more programs that counties offer. When I look at this chart, and you can see it's quite populated, it's very colorful. These are types of programs that typically cities don't often provide, and these are, you know, they're filling gaps of like either harder to recycle materials or special wastes. Things that are kind of not the put it out at the curb and pick up. That seems to be where counties step in and offer services. So drop-off sites are very common. Household hazardous waste programs and e-waste programs are very common. Oh, you know, and my little check boxes for Washtenaw County aren't on there. So cleanup events, other special wastes, and then education and outreach and recognition programs are quite common with county offerings as well. Yes?
And is there any significance to the colors? So Ramsey County has 2 different colors, whereas Orange County is all kind of the same.
Probably just an error.
Right.
Should be yellow. Well, there was check boxes for what the county does, so let me go back. You know, so Washtenaw County, we heard, has a drop-off site. They do e-waste and household hazardous waste, they offer cleanup events. They do other wastes like the pharmaceuticals program, they conduct education and outreach, and you also have recognition programs. And I'm even gonna go back one further. You have to do a solid waste plan. Policies and ordinances, not directly, I don't think that there's anything, there's none of these services offered, and not organics at the moment, but local units of government certainly fill the check boxes here. So you can see Washtenaw's on par with a lot of these peer communities. So I wanted to break it down where I thought it would be interesting to see really what do other counties do in certain instances. I thought particularly policies and ordinances would be interesting. You can see a couple of these counties do hauler licensing agreements. So it's you know, in order to do business, you have to have a license, and these are the requirements of that license. So in Lane County, Oregon, you have to be able to offer commercial recycling to businesses. In Boulder, they have a couple. One, they require people to provide recycling to curbside, multifamily, and commercial. And then they also have an ordinance that requires haulers must embed the cost of organics collection into their residential bills. And then in Dakota, they have a hauler license agreement to ensure residential recycling and organics. Both Ramsey and Dakota County and Minnesota have a commercial recycling mandate. And then in Oregon, there's a state requirement that curbside recycling has to happen. So that's not a county thing, but I thought you guys would like to see what people are doing in other places.
I'm
Yes.
curious, when it comes to the mandates or some of these ordinances, is it state law that the counties have to have them? Or is it just county away on their own?
I don't know specifically to that. I think it could happen either way. I can check though to see if Minnesota makes that a statewide requirement. They might, because Minnesota is quite progressive. So, are you familiar with Minnesota at all, Dave? Okay.
No.
I will look that up and report back.
Minnesota, they do it more through tax code requirements, and there's a lot of financial pressure to recycle because the cost of garbage otherwise gets extraordinarily expensive. Unlike Wisconsin, which is mandated by state law.
And do you know if any of the constituent cities in, or municipalities within these counties have their own ordinances along these lines?
We didn't do a deeper dive of that. Simply, it would take some time, so we can follow up on some of them. I think, you know, like it was easy to find information on Madison, because they have lots of great programs. So I think we could pick a couple and maybe provide that information as follow-up to the minutes. Because I know we found some of it as we were doing this, and I really tried to hone in on county because that's what you're able to affect here as part of the solid waste plan.
It seems significant still if large cities have significant policies that would have a big impact on the waste stream.
And do you happen to know if the state of Michigan allows counties to enact one or more of these alternatives? In other words, would these potentially be on the table for Washtenaw County as we evaluate our options, or does state law prohibit or limit the authority of counties to enact such legislation?
That is a good question. I believe you can. I believe there's counties that have hauler license agreements. But as far as mandates, I think it ends up deferring to local. But I will follow up on that. It's a good question. So just a few of the other program components to call out. Organics was, you could see a lot of counties were dealing in organics. A lot of them were just offering drop-off sites. You have to understand that all of those states are like Michigan, where you know, yard waste is banned from the landfills, so sometimes it's an optional program that they offer just as a way to divert more waste out of the waste stream. Orange County is pioneering commercial organics. I believe the program just started in the past couple of years. They also do a business program that targets like the restaurant industry and really tries to divert glass and things that come out of bars and restaurants, and so commercial organics I think is their next evolution. And then I wanted to point out master composter programs similar to what Washtenaw County has. As far as education and outreach, counties seem to be the go-to for a lot of that information. That doesn't mean that local units don't do it as well. We know Ann Arbor does stuff here in the county and maybe other places. So lots of schools, master composter, and then the recognition program for residents and businesses was pretty prevalent across the counties as well. And then other special ways, the only county that had anything that we caught was Dane County, and they have a county constructed, they have a transfer site within the county and expanded it to do C&D recycling materials, so. Were you with Madison, or you were in, no?
I was in Wisconsin.
You were in Wisconsin, but not
Other
there.
side of the state.
Other side, okay. I was like, oh no, if you're the expert, I don't wanna speak on your program, but, so those are some of the program components that were unique. So those are the peer communities. So I would say, Washtenaw County's on par with what peer communities are doing, so that's great. I think, depending on where people are, they have special programs. I think the commercial organics is a good example for Orange County. That's something of importance because they have a large, bar and restaurant scene there, and they want to capture that. I will follow up on what's doable here in Michigan as far as ordinances being enacted. And we can also follow up to find some city information, and we'll select a couple of counties to show what local units do to have some impact on that. And it might be really helpful if those states are the ones that have solid waste plans, because we could probably pull it right out of there. So any questions on any of the peer community information?
So the data that you shared, the first slide, the diversion data, Colorado, for self-reporting 82% of their waste is being diverted, but they have no composting program. Is that correct, according to your chart?
They don't have a county-operated compost program, but they have diversion of organics collected curbside.
So one thing about that county is they have a similar organization to Recycle Ann Arbor that runs their MRF and I think their compost facility
Okay.
also.
So all the restaurants are on board and.
Right, so I think it's not operated by the county, so that's
I
why
see.
they're not following this.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And
Where-
that would be EcoCycle?
EcoCycle, correct. Right, I think it's former, those Recycle Ann Arbor people get all over the place. I think there's some former Recycle Ann Arbor people out there. So what this is just what the counties actually manage as part of their service level.
I
And so it doesn't mean that they don't have organics, it means these counties actually offer some sort of organics program.
I got you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, no, thank you for the question, I'm sorry it was caused confusion.
And one thought about diversion stats is, depending if people measure C&D, construction demolition, then suddenly you get amazing weights and things. So it might be interesting, we are comparing what we're setting out to do at the time to set that, what the communities are actually measuring.
Good point.
Yeah, and there's no
Whiteboards.
there's no national measurement, rule book. It's, everybody kind of has their own way of measuring. So to your point of, they're self-reporting 82%, that's great. Is that true? They think so, but does it, would it be the same for us? I don't know.
I know you've got your hands generally full, but I'm wondering how easy it would be for these peer communities to get a sense of what the county has budgeted on an annual basis for the scope of programs and services that they provide, so that we could have a point of comparison from a cost perspective as well.
Sure.
Also, it'd be interesting to see what their disposal rates are, because their costs are much greater with the higher disposal costs.
You're checking that, right?
And I think it'd also be interesting to know to what extent are the refuse services public provided versus private.
Yeah, there was definitely a mix
There's a lot.
between those.
So many variables. Hope you got a big computer.
It's all right here. Scary. No, we can check those things up, as long as Noel wrote them down.
Yep,
Great.
I'm writing them down and they're being recorded.
Awesome. So that's it on that section.
So
If
any
there's
other,
any
yeah,
other
any other questions or comments? And all of this will be put on share file as well.
Absolutely.
Great. So on to data collection.
All right, I'm gonna turn this over to Beth. We wanted to walk you through, so first of all, we were supposed to provide data earlier this week, and what we're gonna tell you is we didn't get that much, so we didn't have anything to share, but we were remiss in not letting you know that you weren't gonna get anything, so I apologize for that. So what we wanna walk you through is where we stand on data, and then how we're going to take the information and basically what we do with it, model it and such. So I'm gonna turn it over to Beth, because she's our data guru, and she's gonna walk you through the next couple of slides.
Okay, so this is a visualization of what I was reading off earlier, so hopefully a picture is worth 1,000 words here. These are our service areas, all of the municipalities in Washtenaw County. And so what we'd like to get from each community is a profile of their services available and services offered, and then the tons recycled, the tons composted, and the tons sent to landfill. So if it's green in the first column, that means that we got their profile form back. So you'll recall that I read off that list earlier. And then if there's a green underneath the tons columns, that means we actually got tons from them on their profile form. So you'll see that some communities sent in their form but didn't have any tonnage information, so the community's name is green but the tons are blank. And then I know people were saying, well, what communities have data available? Maybe they don't have any data. Where it's highlighted in blue is where we had data in at least one previous survey from the community. So we think that hopefully at least some of those blue areas, the data is out there and we can collect it. I know Frank said, send it my way, I'll send you that stuff, and there's a big blue box there in the middle that's the WWRA.
The reason you didn't get anything from Chelsea is it's not the Chelsea Village.
Okay.
City of Chelsea, they refuse to open stuff to Chelsea Village.
You know, I actually want to say that we fixed the city of Dexter, and this spreadsheet is off of from the previous plan, which was in '99, so it's a little vintage. The thing we were actually sending out from was more up to date, and I thought we fixed it, but I guess we just fixed Dexter, not Chelsea.
Did you ask about trash in each of these communities too?
Yeah.
Okay, you got one of the problems, Chelsea does pick up domestic trash, but there's a lot of people out in townships that come in and buy, we do a bag and tag, you pay as you throw,
Okay.
that buy our bags and then bring in trash, so it's gonna be somewhat skewed. It's the same way with our recycling numbers. We know people from as far as Grass Lake will bring all their recycling into Chelsea.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we can get you numbers, but they're gonna be, skewed somewhat, at least.
Right. And some of that stuff that's actually out of county, and some of it's probably from other parts of the county.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And
Yeah, that might just require, we might need to pick your brain a little bit more,
Yeah.
Frank, on kind of what you know to be true, and then we can
10%.
estimate from
20%.
You can
there.
only pick so much and then it gets. I'll be glad to try and help, but we'll have to coordinate, like if you, the discussion was demolition, that goes through the city. And they take care of all of that. WWRA has nothing to do with it. So,
The groupings of the towns, are those based on population?
So the first group are the largest cities or communities. The second group is the WWRA, and I actually think the members, Frank, you tell me, like, I'm just looking at this, I shouldn't have put this in from a 1999 spreadsheet because
No, it's no
some of the stuff
problem.
might be different.
Sylvan Township, which probably everybody knows, has got humongous financial problems. So they decided that their residents couldn't afford $26 a year per household, so they pulled out. And Manchester Village recycle out, and they're using modern waste that brings all the recycling to WWRA.
Well, that's one of the reasons I was kind of bringing it up, is that it, the towns that have a private or even their own hauler versus subscription townships may be able to break that up into different, get an understanding a little bit better. Because you're gonna get better data from obviously
Yeah.
the one hauler versus the subscription.
Yeah.
You know, Salem is not going to understand at all what they do because they have a free into a landfill type thing, and we do not track the tonnage they bring in. So that's gonna be kind of a,
Yeah.
I guess there.
And I think you'll see as Beth shows you like what we do with it and how we're gonna model it,
Okay.
we're gonna have to do some estimates somewhere, and that's a perfect example of where and why.
But you may be a better, maybe do a group D, subscription versus.
Troublemakers, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Subscription only, something
That would
like
be
that.
simple, yeah.
And somehow footnote it for posterity too, when
Right.
taking a look at the numbers collected at this time around what it'll be in the future, because it will always be in flux.
Well, that's a good question. Are you asking for the most recent data? Are you asking for a specific date, from 2014, or are you looking for your best guess?
What we asked for is actually 2015, and I think the ones that sent it is 2015, but not everyone is gonna have calendar 2015,
Mhm.
so if it's fiscal 2015 ending in June, that's basically fine, it's close enough.
And we had just done the county had us do a community profile update in 2013. So I think that's why we chose not to do 2014. We thought to ask for the most recent information that we could get, to give a little bit of room between the two. You want the next slide? Any other questions on this one?
So then the other piece, and that previous slide is really focused on residential, which is where we have the most data, and then commercial is much harder because everyone has their own hauler. So we've done some outreach to get data from major generators, and the top 2 employers in the county who are sitting in this room both have provided great data on the total waste disposed and diverted at Michigan and Trinity Health. We also have good contacts on the public school district data, which should be coming in the next week or so, and that should cover the majority of the school districts in the county, and then hope to get whatever data that Washington County has for their own facilities. And then we'd like to continue the outreach down to some of the other major employers, and I just listed them at the bottom here, local units of government like the city of Ann Arbor. I don't know if you have any data on city facilities, but that's great data to use for our commercial waste generation numbers, as well as anything that's reported through the commercial recycling program. Other employers, we'd love to get information on federal government buildings, post office, Eastern, I don't know if we have a contact there, state government buildings, and then we have more private companies that we're just looking for the right people to reach out to.
I'm wondering about whether it'd be worth also looking at shopping centers. They're usually under unified management for waste services. So the stores themselves aren't very large, but taken together.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because if you look like, they usually use one, or,
One hauler
one
for
hauler for all the compactors that are out and behind the mall. So, yeah, I don't know if we've done, if there's a contact that we know, but we could try to look into that.
We might have one from when we were assisting on the initial kind of Ann Arbor commercial program, and I remember that
Mhm.
we might have excluded folks with the national contract, because, you know, that like Briarwood is under, you know,
Right.
they have, and I think we might have set them aside because they have a national contract, so there was nothing we could do, but we might have a contact and we might have some information.
We might also, actually.
Oh, okay. Great.
What about, in the same regard, real estate companies, say a property manager, like McKinley, might own a lot of buildings, and I think they use a national contractor too, that maybe there's information there from
Okay.
a pretty large company.
Jeff, you've got a contact at EMU, correct, that you could provide?
Yeah, we have contacts, Jonathan and I can work on it, but we have a database of folks that we inspect for our pollution prevention regulation at a lot of these facilities, and I think we can get contact information from those files to send along to those folks.
Great.
Yeah.
Just one other thing I would say, in the questions, you need to make sure that you know that they do recycling and then how they do it. And the reason I say that is Chelsea Milling recycles all their own cardboard. They have their own baler, they haul it out, and the plastics which are on a lot, et cetera, we pick up. We do the schools in Chelsea, we do Chelsea Hospital, we do Chrysler, at least cardboard. So people may think, oh no, we don't worry about it or something like that, and the answer isn't correct. So you need to dig. That's basically what I'm saying, you need to dig.
Yeah, the digging is what, has been slowing us down. So it's, you know, we're like, okay, we got this, and then it's like, you gotta dig a little further, so, excellent point, you are very correct. Again, I think we're gonna have to pick Frank's brain, he knows a lot of stuff over there, so.
What?
I went to big box stores like Myers, Walmart, Home Depot, places like that, because they probably have single hauler.
I'm gonna, well, this is residential modeling, I'm gonna go to commercial modeling, why don't you talk about that? I think, so all the actual data is great, and then, but what we can find, there might be benefit to modeling some of it because of the digging that needs to go on. So we can certainly go out and try to get information, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think sometimes using some of the modeling actually, you know, will get us where we need to be without investing the time and effort to get, you know, one-off pieces of information. So like places where there's national contracts, that might be low-hanging fruit, but as you dig, you know, to reach the guy at Best Buy, you know, it's kind of, you gotta balance, is it worth the time and effort? So we'll have to talk about that, I think, as we get more information, but do you wanna talk about this one or go back to the residential?
We can do this one first.
Okay.
So, when people do research on commercial waste generation, it's typically looked at, how much, waste is generated per employee, either per day or per year. And so if you were to take the research and apply it to Washtenaw County, you would say how many employees are there in Washtenaw County, and then how many tons does the average employee generate at their workplace per year? And that would give us an estimate of how much waste we might expect to see based on national averages. And so to make that more detailed and combine that approach with the actual data that we get from some of the largest employers, we look at employment by sector. So within the healthcare sector, there's, let's say, 30,000 employees in Washtenaw County who work in the healthcare sector. You know, we know that 80% of them work for U of M or St. Joe's. So we have the data from those two generators, so we can assume that we've accounted using our actual data for 80% of the employee-generated waste. And then 20% for the employees that we are not able to get actual data from would be modeled using national averages. And what's great about getting the data from our local companies is that it allows us to sort of compare the patterns within Washtenaw County to the national patterns or patterns from other studies, and say, is Washtenaw County similar to, or is it different from California? Is it similar to or different from any of these other studies where they've actually gone to businesses and sampled the dumpsters and identified how many pounds of plastic per employee per day does a restaurant generate, or what have you. So that's what we're looking at, is just combining actual data from major generators for the percent of employment that we have covered with the actual data, and then the remaining percent of the employment for each sector would be covered with per employee generation estimates, and that becomes our model, which is then gives us the generation from each commercial sector within Washtenaw County. And if you go to the next slide, Anna. So this is the example from the healthcare sector, where again we got data from these folks on the committee. So a couple of the best studies of commercial waste generation, and unfortunately there's not as many to choose from as we might like, that go into detail and are done rigorously, but the two best ones are this CalRecycle study is California based, and it looks at waste generated from a huge variety of different sectors in California, and it was done just last year with 2014 numbers, so it's very up to date. And then we also looked at New York City's study, which is quite a bit older, but is also a really high quality study and had a great amount of detail by sector. So then looking at the comparable sectors, we compared the two studies based on the tons per employee per year that they found were generated in this sector, and then compared that to our actual data that we received from Trinity and University of Michigan. So if you're all looking ahead at the numbers, you can see that in California they found the average health employee generated 0.74 tons per employee per year. In New York it was 0.63, and here in Washtenaw it was 0.5, half a ton per employee per year. So it did seem that, this is pretty limited data, but it looked like the Washtenaw County is at the low end of the spectrum in terms of how much waste is generated per employee.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a troublemaker tonight. What the heck? So why is this data normalized like this for healthcare on per employee per year? Because we know as an institution, as an example, that our health system generates approximately half of the total University of Michigan waste, yet it only comprises about, do the math here, 6 million square feet into 36 million is 1/6 of our total infrastructure. We know that the waste coming out of our health system is patient care related, not employee related. So when we give you tons of waste coming from the health system, why are you normalizing it per employee and not like per patient or some other way which would be more representative of what's going on behind the walls?
Yeah, that's a good question. If we're just looking at healthcare, I think it tends to be correlated to either like the number of active beds or the number of patient days. Because this is for healthcare, but we actually want to look at this across all sectors. We don't have great activity-based metrics like that for things like restaurants. Maybe for restaurants you want to look at sales per year or number of meals served, and so it's done by employee so that it can be done cross-sector and look at sort of what's the most waste-intensive sectors for an average employee. if that makes sense.
I understand it, I don't know if I,
And we could look and see if there's other metrics we can look at for healthcare that would be on a per bed or per patient day, to look at
yeah,
the volume.
I see what you're saying. yeah.
I guess, and then we could look at, Medicare publishes those kind of volume records for all hospitals, so that would be something where we could actually take your data and run it against the published numbers
Yeah,
and compare that to peers' data, and then see if we can compare that to national averages, but, like I said, that's healthcare, it's one of like 30 or 40 sectors that we're looking at in Washtenaw County, so.
As true as I think of patients, when people are signed in, they get this welcome kit that's all thrown out when you leave.
oh, it's the patients that are in the bed, that's where the waste is generated out on the floors, big bed. Not the checking kids.
Right, no, and that's what I meant, I'm
Yeah.
just being facetious,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, I get it, I understand it now.
So just to understand this number in this example, the 0.51 tons, is that all sources, and is that solid waste that's exclusive of hazardous waste or other waste streams?
I think the information I sent along did not include medical waste.
Regulated medical waste.
Regulated.
Did include,
Did not.
oh, did not include.
Not, yeah.
Did your data?
I sent it to my data guy, I can't remember.
No, he sent solid waste and,
He didn't send you regulated medical waste?
no, so it was,
Solid waste.
yeah.
Okay, so it's inclusive of
That-
recycling and,
Yeah,
Yeah,
solid waste.
it's
recycled
generation,
waste,
but
which
not
may account for
including
maybe some of the
Okay.
discrepancy there, because
no.
there's a significant amount of
Regulated waste.
regulated
Mhm.
back, regulated waste in
Mhm.
hospitals.
Yeah.
Can I just throw an idea out there that's kind of wild, but, commercial is like a whole world unto itself, a giant world, that each sector is going to have to be analyzed. We've only begun to talk about this. I wonder if for the purposes of this, that's supposed to be done in a year, if residential makes more sense. I know that's kind of sacrilegious, or I'm just throwing it out there as something to maybe think about in a few months.
Is there good national average data that can be used in the commercial sector?
I mean, do we have a lot of commercial already in this plan? I don't know that I remember a lot of commercial.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, you can look at the state of Michigan's report on how much waste is landfilled from Washtenaw County in all the landfills in the state. And then if you compare that to just residential, you'll see that you're not even accounting for half of the waste stream. So, I would say that we wanna include commercial in the plan, even though we know that the unknowns there are gonna be greater because you're dealing with so many more private players.
I guess as long as it's footnoted so people know what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Do you remember back
I
to
wonder
the-
if maybe one thing we could put on the share site, share file, is if we might need to add a little bit to this, but the research that Yuri did comparing the different commercial generation factors, and then comparing that, to a few cities that had, good commercial hauling records, so that people who really wanted to dig into these numbers could.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. It's nicely laid out, so.
Yeah, it's really well written up, you wouldn't have to do much to it at all, so.
So I went back to residential modeling.
Yeah. So since I explained the commercial, I think the residential model, you're gonna see that this is really similar, in concept. The communities that have actual data, account for, X% of the population, and we take their actual data, and then the remaining percent of the population, we would estimate, what their generation would be based on, estimates, and in the previous version of the plan, the estimates that were used were from a 1995 waste characterization study done in the county. Now, unfortunately, we haven't done a more recent waste characterization study, and we do think that the waste stream and generation has changed since 1995. So an approach that we like to take is looking at studies that were done in comparable states or communities and comparing those generation factors in terms of waste per capita per day. And see if those would apply to the communities in Washtenaw County where we don't have actual records. And then at the end of this, our model by community for residential, plus our model by sector for the employee-generated waste, would then, we would end up with an estimated total landfill, total recycling, and total compost for Washtenaw County. And then what's great is we can look at the state of Michigan landfill report and see how close they are, which we don't expect to be 100%, but if we're like 75% the same, I think we would consider it to be a good ballpark. The variation being that there's discrepancies in reporting, the solid waste report is done in cubic yards, and other organizations don't measure their waste in cubic yards, they do it in tons, so there's always gonna be some apples and oranges conversions there. But that's the basic framework of how we would put the tables together in the plan, and we do actually have this set up, but we'd really, it didn't seem worthwhile to compare, to show you what we come up with when we're modeling like 90% of the communities. So we didn't want to show you, this is what it's like with the data we have now, but when we get more data, it's going to totally change, because we don't want to spread that inaccurate information when we do want to focus on getting more data from the people who have it. And then I guess the last thing is how does this factor into our projection over the time period covered in the plan? And for this, we like to rely on the projections that are already done by SEMCOG because they've been thoroughly vetted. And so we have a good estimate after doing this whole process of what the residential waste stream and the commercial waste stream are like now. SEMCOG has a good estimate of growth in both employment and population over the next 20 years. And so put those two things together, we can come to understand what waste would look like over the next 20 years as well. And I don't think we actually, the plan is going to go out, I think we talked about this at the last meeting, but if it's going to go out 10 years or 15 years.
10.
So that's our data update.
In addition to the state requirement for landfill reporting, there are no reporting requirements currently for recycling in the state, correct? Is there for organics, for licensed compost facilities in the state?
Yes.
So that could be a measure that could be used
Yeah.
to evaluate organics tonnages.
Yeah, and it's not done the same way as, if you look at the landfill report, it shows what county the waste came from, whereas the compost facilities just showed how much was composted at that facility and not necessarily
Yeah,
where
we're
it
not
came from.
tracking,
Oh,
we're not tracking by origin.
okay.
So it's almost, well, no, never mind, I was gonna say something, but.
We have a good idea by customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nancy?
Can I strike from the record my talk about getting rid of commercial?
Yes.
Because that was stupid, as
No,
I'm
it's not
refocusing. But I think that refocusing the intent of this committee is to identify where we are now make sure we have adequate capacity out the next 10, 20 years. And so, of course, we have to have commercial in there and.
I was going for the residential only.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like have our work and it would have been great. Thanks, Nancy, you're looking out for us.
I don't know why I said anything, to be honest.
No, we do want the full picture. So. All right, that is that. So slides are queued up for for our next
Okay.
section.
Outreach activities. Is the county taking the lead on this agenda item or RRS?
I can, most likely.
Have you seen these
It's
slides,
pretty
Jeff?
far
No, I haven't
talked
seen the
about.
slides.
Okay.
Could get interesting.
No, it's just gonna be blank.
Well, what we want to do is go around to the community, try to provide a platform for our information to get out to communities. We want to be transparent in our process, invite engaging the communities and also going out to the communities eventually with our plan. And so we are right now in the process of contacting local municipalities to letting them know what we're doing in terms of our solid waste plan update and how it could affect them. We're just letting them know that it happens. I don't get a whole lot of responses back, but I have to do my best as I can to build up awareness to the local units of government because we have to have 2/3 of the local units of government approving a resolution supporting the plan that we develop. So that's very important.
This was around initial planning
Okay.
for some of the outreach activities. So Jeff, this is what we talked about in our agenda planning
Okay,
meeting.
so, an article, just a canned version to send out to local publications on what we're doing, how we're doing it, provide the infographics that we have in our annual reports. Maybe they won't be the best, I'm not quite sure exactly what we want to put in those infographics, but we have some ideas of how we'd like to do that. Social media, we want to use our Facebook, the Water Resources Commissioner's Office, Facebook, and other methods to let them know about the solid waste management process. And then we have, like I mentioned earlier, radio relationships with WEMU, local cable television. There's other radio stations that if we put out a press release, we'll pick this up and help promote awareness of this process that's going on. So one of the things we were thinking about is locating it around 2 different parts of the county. These discussions, these outreach activities, definitely in the affected community, most affected communities, Salem, Superior, we're going out to their municipalities and providing an open forum and hold meetings there to have them provide input during the citizen participation portion of our agenda.
Yeah, just, I think the question that we raised was
Yeah.
this group perhaps meeting in different locations around
Right.
around the county to
Right.
encourage.
There's a couple of locations, but if anybody else would like to come to their, their local community, wherever you may be, or you have a platform through an organization for us to promote this, what we're doing, then those suggestions are more than welcome. So we're looking for input from the planning committee, where, how, and who we should be targeting.
So this is about the outreach in general and just making sure as we're starting to formulate a plan, there's some ongoing things that Jeff talked about, but from this group, who should be aware of the planning process, types of publications and resources that we should tap into. I think we've heard a couple times that there's a, like an elected officials group of county, township supervisors, I'm thinking?
Chief elected officials.
Chief elected
I
officials.
got in contact with them. We're gonna be meeting with them probably May, April, June or July, somewhere in there, wherever we are with this process where I feel like we can provide some information. I do have them made aware of this activity and we can get on their agenda.
Right, and really, we're asking you these questions because you're out there, and so we're looking for some information of where we should direct this information that we're preparing, which is the articles and infographics and information and links to the website so that people can find the information, so.
Chelsea City Council might be a good location since, the transfer station does take their material to Advance. They may wanna know more about this planning process.
And plus you got channel 18 out there, you might want to seriously think about putting a blurb on it.
Okay, if we could take our recording and just put it on channel 18,
You could.
That
okay.
would be great.
And any other local, does Celine have a local cable
I believe they do.
that we could take a video file and put it onto their network? That'd be great.
So you let this sink in. If you think of more things, I would connect with Jeff and the county staff. And we're gonna start working on some of those materials you saw on the previous slide.
So municipal clerks have an awful lot to do. But at least in the townships, they're the ones I think most often, if somebody's got a question or concern, that's often the first person they're gonna contact. And are they the ones that got the debt survey requests?
In some cases, yes.
I am wondering if it would be worth offering to send them, or just sending them electronic links to the minutes, the agendas and the minutes.
Oh, it's on our website, recycle.uwashna.org.
I know it's
But
available.
we'll send it, the link, I know what you're saying.
I'm just saying is to be more proactive,
Right.
Yeah.
and just on a monthly basis, oh, well, here's maybe even a summary in the cover email that goes out to them.
I like it.
Can I get a general sense of the group? Is there support for moving this meeting, in particular around the different locations in the county with advance notice that people would know and could be promoted locally in those communities, particularly when we're meeting in their area? General support, as long as we're aware of those locations well in advance,
And it wouldn't be every meeting.
and it wouldn't be every meeting.
Right. It would just be
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
So,
I think we make sure we have more developed before we start, like April or May.
A little further along.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's a fine idea, but it, you know, that can't be all we do for public outreach. I mean, I think it's gonna be few and occasional folks who attend a meeting of this committee. I think there need to be a more, you know, there needs to be some more active outreach if we really wanna engage people in the process with some focus on what we're, you know, focus on what we're trying to achieve long term. It's you know, a monthly meeting of a county committee it's hard for folks to connect in on it at just one, it's just one meeting of several.
Fair. Other comments? If not, agenda items for the March meeting. Anna, what do you got?
So, March we're supposed to be, according to our schedule that was in the last meeting packet, we are moving into more data analysis. So, based on what you've seen, we still have a lot of data to collect, so that's going to be our primary focus between now and the next meeting. And then we'd like to start talking about, you know, looking at the data and what is it telling us as far as strengths and weaknesses and, you know, opportunities and things like that. So, that is what is on tap for March. Better look at the data and starting to look at an evaluation of that.
Could I suggest that, you're still waiting for a lot of data to come back. If we do not meet in March, to give you 2 months to get all the data, and gives you time to push to get the data, so that you can have like a better package coming to us in April? Is that a better idea?
For us, yes. For us, yes. I mean, that would help.
Would we necessarily lose a month by doing that, or would it just mean that we'd have a more efficient
I think you're.
conversation when we did meet in?
I think you would have a more efficient, my opinion is you would have a more efficient conversation.
Agreed.
I'm not gonna be in Florida, but.
I second the motion.
So I'm hearing to postpone the March meeting and we would reconvene with that agenda in April.
Mhm.
Okay, and to finalize the location and so on at that, well in advance of that meeting. Sound good? General consensus?
Hi, Captain.
Aye.
Okay. Anything else you wanna say about agenda for March?
Can you give an?
Or April, sorry.
Would you be able to at least give communicate with the staff that you're not getting the participation that you need, so maybe we can reach out to
Mhm.
the respective communities would be helpful as well.
How about in lieu of the March meeting, we provide an update that just goes out electronically, so you're getting that update a month
Oh.
from now?
Okay.
Nothing heavy duty.
procrastinate.
Yeah. No, I don't wanna procrastinate, but thank you for thinking of us that way. No, I think we could give you an update, like a status report, so even while you're not meeting, you know where things stand, and then, yeah, I think some of you sitting around this table will be getting phone calls from us looking for more information. Frank Hammer, who turned around, the city will be in contact with you, Dave will probably call you and pick your brain as well, so, yeah, but let's make a note to send out something so you guys have an update
Okay.
of where we're at, and so that you know that things are moving and not sitting.
Before you call me, let me try and pull some data together.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you're welcome to call, but
I'll give you a week. How about that?
I can try in a week, yeah.
So on to public comments. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none? Our next meeting, does somebody have that handy? The date of, let's keep it April.
Oh,
Thanks, Siri.
Megan's paying attention, all right.
Siri?
Okay, so our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 13th, 5:30 PM. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, the meeting is adjourned at 6:58. 2 minutes going to the bank. You're adjourned.
It's Thomas Jefferson's birthday.